Listen up. This stroll out into no man's land isn't gonna be a tea party for you and family. The Eldar might be down, but they aren't out. Corporal?
Okay, stay close, men. Use the rust for cover as we move. It's gonna be the only cover we have.
Stay sharp. Watch out for each other. And it's all gonna be okay.
All right, men. Let's go! Let's go!
Hey, Sarge. I thought I saw something moving out there.
What and where, Baker?
310? Maybe 500 out? I don't know what. Just movement.
Get a grip, Baker. What it look like?
I saw something too, Sarge. 015, about 450. Just a blur of colour, then it vanished.
Must be Xeno's trickery. Hallucinogenic gas. Respirators!
Check 'em. And sound off, boys.
Adley, check. Down!
I saw it again. Just before the rust got slagged. It was...
Saw what, Fielding?
just for a moment. Eldar with some kind of heavy weapon. 015, about 250, then it blurred again.
Got him on Auspex. There's more. 200 and closing.
Damn it, where? I don't see any. Ah!
Welcome to the Objective Secure podcast. My name's Mike.
Hi, I'm Emma.
This is episode 68, Insane Clown Posse.
So how long did it take you to get that intro done?
Which intro?
The one that we just had. That'd be the intro.
Quite a while. That script was fairly old.
Yes.
You've
been talking about it for however long, so
Yeah, look,
finally done.
that
Yay!
script was written according to this when I saved it and converted it, because that file originally comes from the original Rogue Trader Harlequin's release back in, I want to say it's like 92 or something, from the Compendium, and prior to that the White Dwarf, so Rogue Trader era. There'll actually be a copy of it in the show notes, the original version, so you can go and read that. However, I rewrote that according to this. I saved it on the 17th of January 2019.
Oh,
so it's
yeah.
taken me
Thought
over
it
a
took a
year
while.
to get it to work.
Mm-hmm.
I have to thank our contributors in the introduction for their voiceover efforts. Special thanks go to Matt Brown, who we've spoken about in the last couple of episodes, who's a friend of ours, long-term supporter of mine through Worlds and Radio and now OBSEC in America, who did the voice of Sarge. And I think our local contributors did a pretty good job filling in all the other voices. It was a lot of fun to do. Everyone got into the theme of it. And while it would have been nice to do them with proper studio mics and have it all, sound leveled and all the rest of it, so everyone sounded like they're in the same space, I did the best I could with what I had, and I think it came out okay.
Done. It's done.
I was very pleased. So thanks very much to everyone involved.
Mm-hmm.
And, that was just a lot of fun to do. So, in case you haven't guessed, we are going to be talking Harlequins in this episode.
Really?
With my Insane Clown... Look, if that wasn't ready for this episode, I was going to find one of the Insane Clown Posse's songs called Jump Around and try and edit that. But since those sort of things get flagged by YouTube when I put it on YouTube, I figured I'd try and do something else. So, we've got a little bit to talk about in terms of news and whatnot, and then we'll jump straight into the topic.
Okay.
So,
What's new? I heard
yeah.
that there's supposed to be a new Harlequin's Psychic Awakening.
Yeah.
happening?
Apparently it's coming out in June.
Oh my goodness! I wonder if we could maybe have a bit of a brainstorm and see if we could guess what some of those things might be.
Look, there's every possibility that we may be able to take a very educated guess
Yeah.
on what might be coming out. While we certainly won't be sharing any of that in writing,
No.
there are definitely people out there who would be on a very similar par in guessing what was in there.
Because, well, we're not sharing anything in writing.
There's definitely ways of finding it.
I was just going to leave that hanging, but yeah.
And obviously there's something in the mail that's kind of messed that around with everything that's going on. So there are some people who might have been able to
You might have been able to make some really educated
predictions, yep, ahead of time. So that White Dwarf is I'm still waiting to get mine, but you know, a pretty good guess as to what's in that for the Harlequins. We also have a really big preview going to come out for 40k, and it's only for 40k this weekend, and apparently it's an hour. So
Oh, wow.
there's a lot of tumbling rumour that attaches itself to these sorts of things when this is announced.
Speaking of which, there's a lot of tumbling rumours. So I heard that Warhammer stores were opening up in WA this week.
Yep.
And then, so I heard that, and then literally 2 days after I heard that, there were GW stores saying that they didn't know when they were opening.
Having spoken to members of that staff, the plan that I had heard, without naming any names, was meant to be a soft open this week, but from the sounds of it, it'll be a Saturday open at time of recording. So
So there haven't actually been announcements. It is actually just
it's
gossip
coming
and-
from reasonable sources in WA, but that's given that here in Western Australia the official notice has come out as businesses should be reopening this week. That was where a lot of the assumption came from, and obviously with the warehouse open now in Australia has been for about a week or two, and that there are independent stockists receiving stock from the warehouse now.
Yeah.
The assumptions were lined up to be most of the West Australian stores are open Wednesday to Sunday, apart from 2 that trade 7 days. So there was a lot of logic there as to go, it'll be
As of tomorrow, they would be open.
it would be opening, but I haven't seen anything confirming that yet. So
And it's going to be interesting because with the obviously in Western Australia and I think the rest of Australia, we've got a 4 square metres per person rule.
yeah,
So I'm wondering how many people are actually going to be allowed in each of the.
well that's
Warhammer
true. In
stores.
Morley, it's going to be like 2. It's going to be 2 staff and
Two staff and two
customers at a time.
There could actually be a queue around the block.
Well,
All
Fremantle,
these people waiting for spray paint.
yeah, 1.5 metres apart. Fremantle's got the biggest floor space here in WA. It's just a little bit bigger than Baldivis, which in turn is bigger than Joondalup, which in turn is bigger than Perth, which in turn is bigger than Morley.
Yeah.
So the Morley store, I suspect, will be, 2 staff and 2 customers. Perth won't be many more.
I'm trying to sort of get a mental
And I'm assuming
map
for things
going
like
as to how big those stores are, and I just can't.
Fremantle's definitely the biggest, but I think that you got 1 staff member in there and probably 4 people. I
I
think
wonder if they can count their storeroom. Probably can't, can they?
no, I think it's like active
Yeah,
space rather
okay.
than not that
That's
they
a
have
different room.
not that they don't have much storage anywhere to begin with. So
No, but if it's another 4 square metres, it's another person.
well, that is true. Yeah.
So I'm guessing that means that although they'll be open for trade, this was kind of my thought pattern that I forgot to share out loud. Although they'll be open for trade, I can't see them doing any gaming in store for quite some time, or hobby in store, or
No.
definitely not running events in store.
I know that all of those things they cancelled around the world when they had other stores have opened. They basically said there's nothing in store other than sales.
Yeah.
They can't support it and they can't manage it, so they've just pulled the pin on it and said no for the short term.
Yeah.
And I suspect that that decision is probably something that'll be similarly supported by some local gaming stores, not all.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, with a bit of luck, we'll have them open again shortly here in WA.
I know Beyond Games and Hobbies have said that they've reopened the
main gaming space.
main gaming space, and I believe they've opened their role-playing game space.
I thought that was still closed.
I thought that I'd read that they'd opened that and you had to book in for it, but maybe that was the main.
No,
gaming.
I was going to say I thought the main gaming space was book in only, but because of
Okay.
the proximity of the RPG
Yeah.
table, you couldn't use that yet. Which is a shame, but at least they're catering to their
But-
community because it is an isolated community, that one.
Yeah, and it is good to know that they have actually been able to open up space to be able to have people go in and play games, and
Yeah.
so that's great. So if you happen to be in a region where you can travel down to Bunbury,
Well, our regional borders are open now, so we can go to Bunbury, I believe.
yeah, we can.
But, yeah, that might be desperation for some supplies if they run out up here. Although they were encouraging people not to cross those boundaries to stock up on things they needed. And let's face it, hobby supplies are vital.
Yeah, I think they might have been talking about toilet paper and canned food when they suggested that we shouldn't travel to pick up essentials, but perhaps it was spray paint.
Yeah. Costs more to ship spray paint. It's a shame.
All right, we've derailed the conversation. Sorry, I'm focused.
Apart from the whole announcement that we're going to have this big hour-long 40k thing happening this weekend, which we'll probably end up talking about on Wednesday night following this live, the release things that have kind of been filtering through from Games Workshop have been fairly quiet. They've been stuff, showing pictures of models that we've already had. They gave us a preview of the Harlequin rules like 24 hours after they might have already shown up elsewhere.
What I thought was interesting was that they did a preview of a preview.
What do you mean?
Like, just the amount of hype that they're driving around this preview that seems to have...
Oh, the Saturday preview, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a preview of a preview.
That's
yeah.
it. And so it seems as though everything else has become quiet as they're driving more hype around this preview for Saturday, which is great marketing, don't get me wrong.
It is.
But it's just interesting, really.
Well, the fact that it's pure 40k, because they announced in the April ones that there would be more previews in May.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone kind of assumed we'd get more Lumineth Realm Lords, we'd get more 40k, we'd get more Warcry, and so on.
Yeah.
They've said, no, this is 40k.
Mm-hmm.
And there's kind of a few different angles that could potentially mean. It could mean we're just going to... So they teased the return of the Silent King for the Necrons, which has never had rules, never had a model, but they've teased him entering into the realm of 40k, kind of like when the Primarch's brought back.
Yeah.
And it'd be interesting to see if that is going to be a new model, and there'll be a big hype around the Pariah book, which includes the Necrons, and we've already seen some previews for Pariah. But I would assume that it would incorporate new plastic Necrons as well. And the reason I assume that at the moment is there are 4 kits still in production from 3rd edition that use the green plastic rods that none of the other Necrons use. Now, actually, technically, I suppose it's 5 kits because there's a character that does as well, but I don't even know if he's in production anymore. But the core Necron Warriors and the Destroyers and the Monolith and the Heavy Destroyer kit all use those little green plastic rods that now look really out of place because nothing else uses them.
Yeah.
And I feel like we've gotten to, 3 years into 8th edition, that's 20 years on from the release of those models. If they're not 20, they must be damn close. They must have finally run out of green plastic in production, and it's a good opportunity to update those kits because they are old.
Yeah.
And it makes sense that they've still got flayed ones as fine cast. There's still a handful of characters that are fine cast. If they're going to release the Silent King, it feels like a really good opportunity to go, okay, we're just going to clean slate the Necrons, get it all up to date. They're all now plastic. Everyone stop whinging. It's all plastic now. We'll see you in 5 years.
Yeah.
And... that's kind of a positive thing if they're going to go down that. And it would take an hour to show off all the different units, talk about some of the updates and whatnot. And they've still got to cover War of the Spider because we've only seen Fabius Bile and the Acolyte thing that he gets. And then they've still got Engine War, which they've been previewing for the last week or so as well with some of the new models. We've kind of seen the models now. They've been previewing rules for them, really. So, yeah, it's all coming together slowly but surely. And then we've seen stuff like the deathmatch battles for 40k. I want to touch on one very quickly because they did like a lightweight, a middleweight, a heavyweight, and then a super heavyweight, depending on the character's points values. The middleweight incorporated a bunch of characters which felt like there were a few choices that maybe weren't... They were chosen for different reasons. So... they picked Ragnar Blackmane and Junith I can't even say her name. Junith from the Sisters of Battle. Her surname eludes me.
Who will now be forever known as Judith.
Yep. Illuminator Caesars is in there, which is the new model, which hasn't even been released yet. Epidemus for the demons seems like a really odd choice when you've got Skull Taker in plastic, but okay. Drahazar Mephiston, brand new. Patriarch, cool. Tyranid Prime, okay, fair enough. Master Lazarus, the plastic Primaris for the Dark Angels, was chosen. Okay, interesting choice. Commander Shadow Sun being included instead of Farsight when she's shooty and he's combatty and it's a deathmatch combatty thing. Okay. So some interesting choices, but when you get to the final, it feels like Games Workshop forgot their own rules. Because...
That actually feels like that happens really quite often. It feels like somebody's gone, intern, make this, and here's the information. Oh, did you forget to tell him that bit again?
Well, so it ends up with Jane Czar versus Mephiston in the final, which shocked me because Jane Czar probably doesn't deserve to be there. But neither of those models have an invulnerable save. 4 hits and 4 wounds caused Mephiston to fall back on his invulnerable saves. He doesn't have an invulnerable save. How is he saving that? And then he lashes out, scoring a trio of hits and wounding with all 3. Invulnerable saves were rolled, and 2 of them failed, robbing Jane Czar of her final wound. She doesn't have an invulnerable save. So I'm a bit confused.
Yes. Does she have one now?
No, she definitely doesn't have one now. So the only thing I can come up with there is that whoever was taking notes and recording what was going on didn't realise that a 2+ save with -3 falls to a 5+ save, which looks like a 5+ invulnerable.
Yeah.
And that's what I think they're referring to there, because both of these weapons are -3. Both of them have a 2+ armor save, which would make it look like they had invulnerable saves. But they've written invulnerable saves, and of course the internet latches onto these things.
Yep.
Yeah, that didn't go down necessarily as well as it could have with some members of the internet, but...
As I say, I can't think why. It's not like gamers are pedantic about these kinds of bits and
No,
pieces.
not at all. And they've started on the Age of Sigmar ones now with... they're going to do heroes, cavalry, and then monsters, which creates some really weird situations as well, because the Duel of Heroes, the infantry ones at the moment, features characters that range from sub 100 points to over 200 points. And no one is surprised when the over 200 point character that's just about to be released wins. Whereas the 40k ones, there's some oddities, but it didn't feel too rigged because there was, if anything, it was the matchups as who fought who was a bit rigged, but it didn't feel so shonky.
Yeah.
But they're entertaining to read, if nothing else. So it's a good way to kill 5 minutes reading the article. Other than that, we haven't seen a great deal from anyone of late. It's all been very quiet due to everything going on. I do want to talk very quickly about Marvel Crisis Protocol, though.
Again, didn't we already talk about that?
Yeah, but I keep finding more and more models because this company's decided, everyone's quiet. We're just going to publish and show off all the new models that are coming. So they've previewed Ant-Man and the Wasp on their Facebook page today, which are teeny tiny little models, which I don't know how they're going to assemble given how these ones have gone together.
How teeny tiny are they?
The base sizes that all these models come on are 35mm, and from the photo, it's hard to tell, but from the photos, they will not be any taller than Captain America's knee. So they're going to be a centimetre tall.
Oh, wow.
Maybe. So between them,
it would have been much better if they'd done them as him in his giant.
That'd be cool as Giant Man, and then the Wasp can just be regular sized with her wings. So we've seen models of those. I've seen Ghost Rider as well on his motorbike, which looks pretty freaking cool. And we've got Thanos and the Black Order coming. Like, they've just gone, here's all these cool models. So I'm really looking forward to it. And from the looks of it, the release schedule is fairly rapid from June now all the way through to early 2021. They've got the Green Goblin and some more Spider heroes coming, and Into the Spider-Verse. We've got Spider-Gwen and Miles Morales as well. So...
Well, most of ours are painted now.
All 10 of them are painted now.
Well, the bases aren't
finished.
Is what I meant by most of the model is.
Our son got sidetracked today. Instead of doing the bases, he decided to build himself a life-size Iron Man helmet.
It does look pretty cool.
He did a good job.
Yeah.
So we've talked about how to do the bases, so he's going to do those this week, and once they're all done, we'll get some photos and put them on the Facebook page to show them
A
off.
couple more games in.
Because he's done a good job.
He has done a good job. And it's always nicer to play with painted models
Yeah,
than grey
it
plastic.
really adds a lot to it, particularly when they're superheroes, and we're re-watching the MCU at the moment, so...
Yeah, purely as a result of playing this game. We're
Yeah.
watching the MCU from start to finish.
Yeah, I think we're on to Black Panther next. I think Doctor Strange was the last one. I think Black Panther's the next one.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So.
That's kind of where we're at, unless you've got anything you want to add to this. Oh, there is one more thing that I've just found in our emails, but you can go first if you have anything.
I have nothing.
Okay.
But I like that this is the 1 week where you ask me if I've got anything.
I ask you all the time.
You don't. I'm like, oh, I had something to add there. And this week you asked me and I actually have nothing.
Okay. We got an email about 5 hours ago, which I've just found when I turned my laptop on.
Okay.
From the City of Armidale around Hall Hire. July is a fairly large question mark.
Mm-hmm.
At the moment, they're not willing to confirm nor deny that it will be available.
What date is our event for July?
Like the first weekend.
Yeah, that's going to make that a bit tricky.
So, but they have at least offered us to allow it to move it or to refund it. So we can decide what we want to do with that. But at this point in time, it means August is likely the first time we're going to be able to run anything.
Have they confirmed August?
No, they will not confirm anything with August.
So you are telling me and everyone who's listening to this that we still don't know anything, but now we have an official email from City of Armidale to say that we don't know anything.
Yes.
Do you feel like that was a valuable use of our last 5 minutes?
No, but it's news.
It's not. It's actually old. Nothing has changed.
Well, I feel like
So
it
now
changed.
we can officially say that nothing has changed and we still don't know.
I suppose if you want to put it like that. Look, it felt relevant.
Those things, this meeting could have been an email.
Well, it was an email for me. I'm just sharing my meeting.
Right.
Anyway, on that note, we'll wrap this up nice and quick and we'll jump straight into Psychic Awakening Harlequins.
I'm going to jump straight in because I realised I left my chocolate in the car, so I do need you to go get that
Oh,
for me.
okay. Well, I'll somersault and cartwheel out to the car and then flip belt back inside so we can talk Harlequins.
Yeah. Don't even try that because everybody who's listening knows if you attempted any of that, you're spending the next week in Armidale emergency. So how about you just gently walk
Meander?
out there slowly and carefully, preferably with steel cap boots on just in case.
All right.
Right, you go do that.
Okay, back in a sec. All right, Harlequins. I'm super excited about this. Yeah, I love my Harlequins.
Really? I think you have hidden that exceptionally well. I don't think anybody who's listening would know that you are a fan of Eldar or Harlequins.
Harlequins were my first 40k army ever.
I reckon people know that too.
Some of those models hit the table today. Because I actually got to play a game with these new rules today.
Yep.
Special thanks to Rich for coming down and getting both our first games of 40k in months. Must be months. 2,000 points Iron Hands versus Harlequins.
Mm-hmm.
Neither of us particularly optimised, mainly because we wanted to make sure it was all painted. And my Harlequins, because of all the changes in Chapter Approved, are no longer 2,000 points, so I had to hastily get some paint on the in-carn to bring it up to 2,000 points. And Rich, knowing that I don't have the list I want for a competitive Harlequin build, decided to bring some cool models from his collection, from his Heresy, as well as his 40k range, and kind of mix and match them to make a cool, fun army.
Mm-hmm.
I think we actually did a pretty good job of balancing out the game.
Mm-hmm.
And we finished 6 turns. It did take us about 3 hours to do. But 6 turns, we finished 38 to 35 in the Harlequin favour. So I'm like a 12-8 under the scaled scoring process. We played a complex mission. It was actually a mission that I've written for WATC for later in the year. So it was a combination of Eternal War Maelstrom and then kill points, for lack of a better description. I don't think they're called kill points anymore, but I doubled his score at the end of turn 6 until he had a kill points in. And then I gave up like 18 kill points to the 11 I picked up, and the gap disappeared fairly quickly. So I only had a single model left at the end of turn 6, which was a Death Jester hiding in the corner, and he still had an undamaged tank, a half-dead tank, and a handful of Terminators. So he definitely had the table control, but I'd run away with the scoring in the early part of the game. So as soon as I realised what was going to happen in turn 5, I scored the points I needed to in turn 5 and then ran
and hid.
Scored a few extra points, sacrificed a couple of characters to get those extra kills to make sure that the one model that ran away would live. And then was willing to forego turn 6 to just go, yeah, look, I'll draw my cards and see what I get. I drew Kingslayer and picked up D3 extra points because I'd already killed his Warlord. So, good fun game. I got some photos. I got a little bit of video. So I'll try and splice that together.
A little bit?
Well, because we didn't set up the overhead recorder today, we did it all handheld.
Okay.
Using your DSLR.
Which one?
The good one. And so I kind of just recorded like a minute or two at the end of each turn and some photos to go with it. And it'll end up like a 10 or 12 minute video. So...
whole point of this was to record the whole thing.
No. This episode was what it was about. Anyway.
Seeming more and more like you just wanted to have a friend over to play.
Look, part of it was that. But I got video footage, I got photos, I've got audio. It's all going to go together. It's going to be fine. That'll be on YouTube shortly. Anyway.
I'm just going to take a photo of my impressed face. Just in case my voice isn't giving it away.
People know what your impressed face is. It's when they come and ask you what a stupid question that's in the players pack. So, Harlequin's got 3 areas of update. Now, I fully admit I was pleasantly surprised by all of these updates because I was not expecting what we got. I was expecting a Genestealer Cult pseudo version, which was going to be a name generator, a couple of pages of new stratagems, a build your own mask, like chapter type thing.
I don't understand what build your own mask is.
Okay, so... or most of the factions have it now. The big factions do, at least, through Psychic Awakening. So in the case of Psychic Awakening 1, the craft world's got instead of taking one of the core craft worlds from the Codex, so Bieltan or Ulthway or Siam Han or one of those, you get a DIY version where you can pick up to 2 special rules, and you could call it Craft World OBSEC. And all of them get the keyword OBSEC, and then the keyword means they get these 2 rules. And most of the factions have had that now, where they get to pick 1 to 2 rules, call it whatever you like. It's kind of like, it's basically a build your own special rule combo thing. And that's what I was expecting for Harlequins, where you'd get a build your own Harlequin. And we didn't get that. We didn't get any new psychic powers, which is another one I was expecting. We did get the stratagems, and then they went off the reservation and gave us a whole bunch of new stuff that was a real pleasant surprise. I was very pleased. And having now used some of this on the table, I'm even more pleased. So the stratagem side of things is all really good. The relics are all really good. The new pivotal roles, which is the first thing we'll talk about in a second, are all really good. Actually, that's not true. There are a couple of duds in there, but the rest of it is really good. And if you've been on the internet in the last few days, you'll have probably seen a written review of some of this. But...
Not from us.
Not from us, and certainly not with table time. I haven't seen anyone else saying, hey, I've actually used these on the table and this is what I found out.
Just going forward, I'd like to make a suggestion.
Shoot.
So when these things come out, I personally, at the moment, and often, don't have the capacity or mental space to be able to dredge my way through reading the
Some very long articles here, yeah.
Yeah. What I would find really useful, and I'm aware that I'm different to most of the people who listen or read our stuff, and also I'm aware that I'm very long-winded. I'm suggesting something the total opposite to that. I would like to suggest a dot point review of everything that's in there. So I can look at it and go, okay, yep, these are the questions I've got. And then we can come on and have this conversation. Then you can publish that dot point review
Well,
for people who
the other
also
way.
don't want to dredge their way through.
We'll do it the other way
information.
around. We'll do the dot point article separate.
But that doesn't help me because I don't have it in front of me. And I had to dredge my way through all these articles, didn't I?
Well, here we are.
So I'm just saying, I think that when things like this come out, that's what you should do.
You want a Cliff Notes version? Okay.
Well, if I could have an abridged Cliff Notes version, that'd be great. Because I remember using Cliff Notes to get myself through uni. Some of those Cliff Notes are still quite long.
Fair enough. So 1 line per rule. Take it, don't take it.
Yeah, like I said, ideally I want 50 words or less for the
The whole
entire
thing.
article.
That's not going to work with this because they did give us... Admittedly, they've given us...
I'll go to 300 so we can search engine optimization.
Yeah, that's true.
Optimize it at the end.
So the first thing they gave us was a thing called pivotal roles. So basically this lets you... The 4 characters that the Harlequins have access to, the Troopmaster, the Death Jester, the Shadow Seer, and the Solitaire.
You get 3 new options.
Yeah, instead of the core rule that they all get,
Yeah.
or that each one gets for its chosen thing. What I really like about this is the Harlequins are meant to be... They're not just warrior, ninja, assassin-y things. They're also storytellers for the Eldar race. So when they go to war, they take on the roles that they perform on stage. Mm-hmm. So the idea of giving them these pivotal roles, representing the pivotal points in Eldar society, in the fall and so on, is really cool.
So one of the things that I think has been misunderstood, perhaps, and perhaps I'm misunderstanding it, but seems to be this idea that these pivotal roles can be used repeatedly and throughout the army. And the way that I'm reading it is that they can actually only be taken once per army, which does actually significantly impact, how that impacts a game, really.
Oh, certainly when this first dropped, and even up until today, I've seen people claiming that you put them in different detachments and all this other stuff. But no, it's pretty clear. I actually made a comment about this on a page and said, it's the second sentence, and
that's
someone
exactly
went, yeah, but that's all the fluff stuff. I don't read the fluff stuff. So
actually, I think that might have been last week's Facebook Live.
Might have been, yeah.
I think that might have been Ben who said that, actually.
But yeah, so you're 100% right, though. The first thing to note with the pivotal roles is that each one of them is unique per army.
Yeah.
And there is a way of taking your core role and a new role, which is a stratagem, but you can never take the same extra role more than once. And each of the 4 characters got 3 new roles.
So they can be taken as well, because I've read it that pivotal roles are taken instead of normal
So
abilities.
they normally are. So using the Troopmaster as the example, his core role is called Choreographer of War.
Yep.
And he can then swap that for Prince of Light, Darkness Bite, and Twilight Grasp. However, there is a stratagem.
I quite like the Twilight's Grasp. I think we should definitely have that.
So
it's very pretty. Sounds like a My Little Pony.
Twilight's Grasp.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the Darkness Bite, My Little Pony? That's going to be a creepy little thing.
Actually, I quite like this idea.
So there's a 1 command point stratagem called Pivotal Role. Use the stratagem before the battle, select a character. That model gains 1 of their respective pivotal role abilities. This does not replace an existing ability. For each model from your army, you can have no more than 1 pivotal role ability, and each pivotal role ability must be different. Mm-hmm. So, it just means that you get to keep, for 1 command point, you get to keep your core ability and then pick up a new one.
Yeah.
The first thing I noticed today with these pivotal roles is you want a lot of them.
Yeah.
And half the time I found myself going, I really want to have more than 1.
Yeah.
Or I want to keep the primary one, I should say, and get one of these.
Yeah.
And I had to cut it back in my head because my first pass, I used every single command point I had before the game started to get access to the rolls and the relics and everything that I wanted, and then went, I'm going to have to actually make choices. And the fact that I have to make choices is good. I can't just have everything I want. Because in my head, I went, oh, cool, I have 3 Death Jesters, 3 Shadow Seers, a Solitaire, and a Troopmaster. That's 8 characters. I'm going to spend 8 command points and give all of them a second roll, and then I'm going to spend 3 command points for extra relics. No, I'm out of command points. I can't even do that. Oh, okay, well, the Death Jesters don't need all of them, so I can save 3 there, but, I'm still out of command points. So you will find yourself having to make choices. which I think is a really good thing. So the Troop Master, we'll start here and we'll just jump straight into some of them.
Yeah.
The Troop Masters ones, like we've already said, Prince of Light, Darkness Bite, and Twilight's Grasp.
So despite the fact that I really do like the name Twilight's Grasp, that does seem to be the least effective of the three.
I can find a couple of ways of using it, but I think Prince of Light is combined with other things is really good. I ran Choreographer of War today with Darkness Bite, but his Warlord trait was Player of Light. Now, Player of Light as a Warlord trait is reroll charges.
Yeah.
Which, if I'd taken Prince of Light, then combines with it to give me +1 to the roll and the reroll on top of that. I actually didn't, like, in the game today, I didn't ever need that +1. The reroll was enough. So I was kind of pleased I did take Darkness Bite. I feel like the Prince of Light will come into play more when you have a heavier infantry army, and I certainly was mostly mechanized today. Prince of Light is a really good ability because anything that makes charges more reliable in 40k is just good.
Yeah.
And when you've got an army that does all of its, or 75% of its damage in combat, if you can get there reliably, that's even better. Darkness Bite, though, today was really interesting because my Troop Master charge in, he actually had 9 attacks on the charge, which we'll explain why in a second. And I split his attacks between a Primaris Lieutenant and a squad of Primaris Space Marines. And at the end of him fighting, the Lieutenant had 2 wounds remaining. And so Darkness Bite let me go, oh, here's 2 mortal wounds.
Yeah.
And finish off the character, safe in the knowledge that by dividing my attacks, I killed some of both units and then could finish something off if I needed to. So that 2 mortal wounds is just a neat way of going, oh, you know what, here's 2 extra damage. No saves, no nothing, just take extra damage. And if you combine that...
And much like rerolls, who would have thought being able to give extra damage was a good thing?
Well, you can combine this with War Dancer as well, which is admittedly 3 command points, but that lets you fight again. So you can fight, and if you combo it like I did today, where you've got 10 or 11 attacks...
Yeah, but 3 command points. What are you taking 8 command points with your army today?
I had 9 today. And I did use War Dancer, but not for this.
It's a third.
Yeah, it is. I can honestly see myself wanting at least 12, like a double battalion or even brigades. I'm going to want 10 to 12 CP just to get all... It's actually not necessarily for the table use, although there are some really good uses for it. There's a lot of this stuff that I want at the front end, which is going to be the problem.
And this is interesting because...
I don't like building armies this way.
You don't like building armies this way, and that's the episode that we're recording for the patrons episode, which is around why you don't need CP and, you know, changing the thinking around CP. And you seem to have changed your thinking around CP.
For this army, I've had to, because the way I want it to operate on the table that I can make it do now,
you need the CP for it.
And I think I can still apply some of those theories that I have to this army, but it's about setting that budget and understanding where that budget goes. Not just being willy-nilly going, oh, I can War Dancer turn 1, I can War Dancer turn 2, I can't do this anymore. Twilight's Grasp, though, which is the third one, which you love the name for, is...
So one of My Little Pony called Twilight's Grasp.
It's an interesting power because you would give it to a model with a power, just a basic power sword, which the fall down for that is normally on its ability to actually wound things. So this lets you wound on a 2+ for anything that's not a monster or a vehicle. And combined with the Twilight Fang, which is one of the...
Just out of interest, are there any horses in Harlequins?
No.
It's such a shame.
I'm sure we can come up with something. We'll do a repaint of some My Little Ponies in Harlequin checks and see what we can do. So yeah, 2+ to wound is always fantastic. Makes for a great character hunter with the right war gear. You might even give him a Harlequin's Kiss so he can go in with D3s. And there's a few different combinations you can pull with that sort of... And again, you combine it with different weapons. But it's the least reliable in terms of damage because your mortal wounds just dodge that completely. And the ability to throw multiple units of Harlequins in reliably with Prince of Light is just a better all-round ability. So Twilight's Grasp is probably... It is probably the weakest of the three, but it's also probably the easiest to use and the least versatile.
Sometimes the easiest to use is useful.
Well, there was one combination that I came up with a troop master using Soaring Spite as his mask. Now, Soaring Spite has a warlord trait that all kind of ties this together. So you give him Twilight's Grasp for the 2s to wound, and then you give him the new relic Twilight Fang, which is a relic power sword, which we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
And then you put him in a vehicle, a Starweaver specifically, because that's the only transport they get. And his warlord trait that the Soaring Spite get is called Sky Strider. And it lets the warlord disembark a transport even after it has moved, which you normally can't do. So what you would do is you put him in a transport. The Starweaver moves 22 inches when it moves and advances. So it moves 22 inches. He then gets a 3-inch disembark at the end of that, and he's got a 1-inch base. So he's now covered 25.5 inches, for lack of a precise measurement. He then gets to move and advance normally himself. So he now moves 8 and advances d6, and you can spend a command point to make that a flat 6. So he gets another 14 inches on top of that 25. So he's now covered, what's that, 39 inches? Something like that? 25.
I wasn't adding up, so sure.
Yeah, 39 and a half, including his base. And he still gets to roll his charge move now. All of it ignores terrain. All of it ignores enemy models until the charge roll. So on a standard 48-inch wide table, he's gone from his deployment zone to your board edge before he even rolls his charge range. And then when you combine that with the Fang and the Grasp, where he's now hitting on 2s, wounding on 2s, with multiple attacks, with a good AP, with, you stack it all together.
Yeah.
He's a mini solitaire. He goes in and murders a character. It does cost you your warlord, though, because the warlord trait.
Yeah.
But as if you don't care about your warlord and things like ITC that don't have Slay the Warlord,
Yeah.
when you can afford to throw him in there as a ballistic missile to go, oh, where are you getting all your rerolls from? Oh, that Iron Hands Tech Marine there gives +1 ballistic skill to all my units and does this, that, and the other. How many wounds has he got? 4. Awesome.
And that comes down to, things that we've talked about before, which is around know what you're building for.
Yeah.
So if you're building for an event, if you are building for either an event or because you play ITC compared to ETC, WTC, whatever it is now, then it's worth considering more, that perhaps.
Yeah. If you're going to give up Slay the Warlord as a secondary, then you have to make a choice there, because he is going to die. He's going to be in the middle of an enemy army, probably unsupported.
Yeah.
And there are, you can back him up with a blitzing solitaire using one of the other abilities. And you can do it with the bikes as well, with a double moving Twilight Pathways bike unit. So you can kind of give him some support, but ultimately, wherever he ends up, he's probably going to get gunned down in your opponent's turn with very little you can do about it.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting ability where you've got a single character model that barrels across the table 40 inches before he rolls his charge roll and stabs something in the face. So, and the fact that it wounds on 2s means that you pick an enemy character, a turn 1 at 6 attacks, hitting on 2s, wounding on 2s, neg 3, 2 damage. He'll kill most support characters, just die. And if you pick the right character, that could be pivotal. Not bad for a 60, I think he's 60, maybe 70 point model. But yeah, that's the first one that jumped out at me, is how can I turn him into a Scud missile?
Yeah. Ready to move on to Shadowseer?
Yeah, I definitely feel like, in order, Prince of Light's probably, if you're going to go big infantry, if you're going to go full infantry army for Harlequins, then Prince of Light's what you want.
Right.
If you're going to go more vehicle-based, you'd probably consider Darkness Bite to give yourself a character that can go in and reliably deal mortal wounds and finish stuff off that Harlequins don't deal with well. And Twilight Grasp is
probably only going to be a very small improvement.
Yeah, it's cool, but it's not one that I'd regularly take.
Unless you're choosing it because it's an awesome name.
Yeah. Although
It's an option.
I'm now thinking about it going, I've got enough Harlequin parts, we might be able to model a Harlequin stood on the back of a My Little Pony and we can put checks all over it. And
Exactly what I was thinking.
All right, Shadow Seer.
Okay. So it replaces Shield from Harm.
Yep. Shield from Harm is the -1 to wound against mask infantry, 6-inch bubble, which infuriated Richard all day today because there is oh look, the we spent a lot of the day with him going, it can do what now? I was as surprised as he was, to be honest. It actually combos really well with a stratagem called Foes of the Mind, which is 2 command points, which actually lets the Shield from Harm aura work on everything, not just infantry, which is really frustrating in the early parts of the game when you've got vehicles that are -1 to wound and bikes that are -1 to wound, which is what I did today.
Okay, so we're looking at... so it's replacing them with Veil of Illusion, Gloomwake, or Agent of Bedlam.
I used 2 of these today. Veil of Illusion and Agent of Bedlam. Gloomwake is... I can see uses for it, but it's not good.
It's not awesome.
No. I mean, it lets you count as being in cover, which is a cute little trick. Most of the Harlequins don't gain anything from cover because they've got an invulnerable save anyway. The only things it really affects are Starweavers, Voidweavers, and Skyweavers, all the bikes and the vehicles. The problem with it is they've all got a 4-up invulnerable as well, and 4-up armor. So this makes them 3-up armor. So as soon as you hit them with a negative modifier, you're back to your invul anyway. So unless something's changing around how cover is applied, you just don't get enough out of it for losing Shield from Harm.
Yeah.
So I don't know that Gloomwake is one that you'll see with any regularity, particularly since on top of all of that, he can't keep up with the bikes and vehicles. He's only on foot, and the aura only works while he's out of the vehicles. So you might find some use for it, but in all honesty, I'd probably just keep Shield from Harm if you're thinking about taking it. It's probably better in the long run because it affects him. Agent of Bedlam, I actually never got to use because I forgot it when I got charged. And then he got shot to bits after he survived that charge. So I actually didn't get to see it on the table. Having thought about the game, though, the Shield from Harm would have been better for me anyway.
Yeah, and the reviews that I have read seem to sort of suggest that Agent of Bedlam is a little bit underwhelming and Shield from Harm is probably a better option.
Yeah, and that's certainly what I experienced today on the table. Yeah. And if it weren't for the 3rd power, I would take Agent of Bedlam using the stratagem, so I could keep both.
Yeah.
The problem is I would rather have Veil of Illusion and Shield from Harm as a combination than Agent of Bedlam and Shield from Harm.
So Veil of Illusion, that's where you add the 3 inches. 6 inches, sorry. So it forces your opponent to subtract 6 inches from their weapon's maximum range?
Yeah, it's worded weirdly because it actually adds to your distance away.
And this is where there's been confusion in the past, isn't there?
Yeah, so the way they've actually worded it now, it works better.
Okay.
Because, if I'm 22 inches away from you, I now count as being 28 inches away from you. And then you determine whether I'm in range and special rules and rapid fire and everything like that.
Yeah.
When you took inches away from the distance, there were questions around how rapid fire worked and when you get multiple shots at half range and how you figure all that stuff out.
Yeah.
Now all you do is go, how far away am I?
Yeah.
Add 6 to that. What does your weapon do at that distance? The net result is generally the same in that you're either in range or out of range or... Today, though, this ability was...
Stretching back through my memory, because I believe there were times where there was confusion around this in this...
It was to do with how rapid fire was resolved in prior editions, which had this rule where it was a 24-inch range gun that became 18 inches, and then did its rapid fire range stay at 12, or did it become 9?
Become 9, yeah, that's it. So,
which is the issue, whereas this neatly resolves that.
Yeah.
Because it turns around and goes, you're this far away, your rapid fire range doesn't change. The question is now, are you still in rapid fire range at that distance?
Yeah.
So it's actually a neat fix to that confusion. And it's freaking amazing on the table. I was there today. I charged a ironclad dreadnought with a melter gun and a flamer, 8 inches and 12 inches respectively. I charged it from 7 inches away and took no overwatch. because the flamer essentially became a 2-inch range instead of 8, and the melter gun became a 6-inch range essentially instead of a 12, because even though I was 7 inches away, I was actually 13 away.
Mm-hmm.
And that was friggin' amazing.
Yeah.
A lot of people I've seen commenting on it are about the long range stuff where you can stay out of range for turn 1, which did happen today. I was able to avoid everything but the really big las destroyer guns, which was 72-inch range, and that's that. Up close and personal, where you're going, oh, I'm going to chuck a grenade on Overwatch. No, you're not. I'm out of range. I'm going to shoot fusion pistols at you. No, I'm not. I'm out of range. Flamers, out of range. Denying rapid fire up close, out of range. There's so many of those halving the amount of shots that are coming in at you when you charge. It's not ignore Overwatch, but it's pretty friggin' good for a lot of those scenarios.
Because it's close to avoid Overwatch.
And for things like flamers that Harlequins hate charging, like Lachlan's aggressors with salamanders, where he's got 12 flamers, and I was thinking, how do I charge them with Harlequins? Now I can.
Yeah.
They've got an 8-inch range. I can literally stand 3 inches from them with Veil of Illusion and go, cool, now you can't Overwatch me.
Yeah.
I don't think it can be understated how good that power will be as a support caster who goes in with Shield from Harm together, and which is what I was thinking about doing today, but just didn't have the CP to do.
Mm.
And again, there's a relic that really buffs it. There's a relic, it's a new one called, while I look it up, the Shadow Stone. Adds 3 inches of range to the bearer's auras and their range of psychic powers. So now I've got a 9-inch aura of -1 to wounded, a 9-inch aura of 6-inch range, and all my psychic powers are a longer range.
Yeah.
That's a support character that a pure Harlequin army you'll want.
Yeah.
So I think that's my favourite from this so far, is that combination on one seer. And then if I'm going to run more than one, which I'll probably end up running 2 most of the time, I'll probably keep Shield from Harm. If I run a third, I'm still likely to keep Shield from Harm. Particularly in big infantry armies. You might take Agent of Bedlam if you're going vehicle heavy and you're going to try and jump out and debuff a whole bunch of stuff you want to charge. The problem with it is that it reduces you to one. It reduces you by 1 to a minimum of 1.
Mm-hmm.
So charging things like guardsmen, basic troops, it actually does nothing. And you don't want to be trading out a power that does something for a power that does nothing.
Yeah.
So at a tournament, it's a risk, because all of these powers, and that's the other thing to mention, if you're going to take any of these powers, most tournaments are going to require you to put it on the army list, because they're done at list selection.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and at that point, you're probably safer just to keep Shield from Harm. But yeah, really, really like Shield from Harm combined with Veil of Illusion combined with the Shadow Stone. Definitely a really cool combo. And I think there's a lot of people missing how good Veil of Illusion is up close. They're focusing on the fact that I can sit 37 inches away from a 36-inch range gun. You only move 6 inches and I'm out of range. When in actual fact, I think the most of the value is going to come from it being close range.
I think the reality is that while running and hiding is actually a completely legitimate tactic, you can't do it for every turn.
And not if you want to score points.
Exactly. So there does actually have to be some point where you do come out of the shadows and do something, and so you do need something that's going to work in close range as well.
And that's where I think, Veil of Illusion combined with Shield from Harm is going to be amazingly frustrating for people. Like it was today. Hi, Rich.
Perfect. We ready to move on to Death Jester?
Sure.
Death Jesters replace their Death is Not Enough. Well, they can. They don't have to replace their Death is Not Enough ability with Harvester of Torment, the Jest, Inescapable, and Humbling Cruelty.
So, Death is Not Enough is an ability that you're going to be generally happy to ditch. Now, the Death Jester at 45 points was used quite regularly as just an objective holder. He'd sit in the backfield holding objectives, being hard to shoot at because he's a character, multiple wounds and an invul save. And he was a cheap way of filling up slots for a Vanguard to get you extra CP, and he had his uses, but he was never awesome. Yeah. And Death is Not Enough basically just let you pick the first model that fled if you manage to kill models.
Speaking of running and hiding,
Yeah.
this is the
problem is that he wasn't particularly good at killing models in the first place, and
yeah.
you had to kind of do a whole lot of damage, and then you had to hope that he'd attacked that unit, and then they failed a leadership test, and then you got to pick the first model. Like, it was just,
Yeah.
So the 3 Death Jesters I ran today, I swapped for each. Like, I think this is going to be a really standard thing, is that if you're going to run 3 Jesters, you swap for all 3 of these, because they're all pretty good.
Yeah, they look good.
So, I think a lot of people as well are ranking them in an interesting way, and I feel like there's some opportunities for all 3 of them.
Yeah.
So, Harvester of Torment's the one that everyone's latched onto.
See, I was looking at that, but it's only when it targets units with 6+ models.
That was my first problem today. Because everyone's latched onto it and gone, oh my god, you combo it with the new Relic Cannon, which, don't get me wrong, the Relic Cannon, Kegarak's Lament, is really good. But I took that combo today not knowing...
The Relic Cannon doesn't add hits, does it?
No.
Okay,
but
you can't stack it with any ability that adds hits.
But what the Relic Cannon does is that you fire at single shot mode, and if you get the 3 hits using Harvester of Torment, so you're basically getting 3 hits at strength 6, neg 3 damage, and for every model the Relic Cannon kills, it inflicts D3 mortal wounds and -2 to your leadership. So in theory, you can get 3 hits, 3 kills, -6 leadership, and 3d3 mortal wounds.
Yeah.
Sounds great in principle. However, if you rock up to a table like I did today with that very combo, because we wrote the lists without knowing what each other was bringing, and then he has no units that are with 6 or more models, I had a model with Harvest of the Torment that I literally couldn't use. So inadvertently, Richard brought an army that completely ignored that ability.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because that model then became my Suicide Death Jester. Despite him having the relic, he ended up being used with Hero's Path because he was the least useful of the 3.
Yeah.
So that was interesting to discover that. And I think it goes to show that there will be times when buying that extra relic, you wouldn't give him the... Like, if you rock up to a table at a tournament and your opponent is just units of 5 MSU...
Yeah.
Why would you spend CP giving him the Relic Cannon when you're not going to be able to use it? So...
But again, if you've written that in your list prior to attending...
What you do then is you just make sure that the one relic you're always going to take, which is the one you're required to take, you make it like the Shadow Stone or the Twilight Fang or something else that you know you're going to use every game. That combination is so specific that if you rock up to an MSU army, it just doesn't do anything.
Yeah, sure.
The gun's okay, but it really gets its mileage out of Harvest of Torment. The Jest Inescapable is the most boring of them, or on face value. 12-inch range, ignore cover, and deal mortal wounds on 6s. There was a combo that someone posted. I haven't checked how it works yet, but there is a combo with it that you can basically deal 20-something damage with it if you stack the stratagems and you get 6s to hit and 6s to wound, and it's one of those... perfect storm scenarios where you go, oh, cool, so I've got 1 shot and I rolled a 6 to hit, and we're using a stratagem that 6 becomes 3 hits, and then all 3 of those roll 6s to wound, which deal 3 mortal wounds, but then because it's a Shrieker, it also does D3 mortal wounds, and then because I killed a model with my single mortal wounds, then I deal more mortal wounds, and it's this kind of exploding dice mechanic that only works if you roll, I think it's like 5 6s in a row.
Yeah.
So it's never going to happen.
Well, could happen.
What I like about this is just that 12 inches of range.
Yeah, well, that's what I was looking at.
Because they're only a 24-inch range gun, but if you're going to have a character sat on a backfield objective for 45 points, if he's got a 36-inch range, he can actually have an impact on the game. At 24 inches, a lot of the time, they just kind of stood there going...
I got it.
Yep, I'm here.
Still got it.
Whereas I found today that he was actually able to reach out and put shots down range.
Yeah.
Albeit not awesomely, but he was actually able to do stuff on the table, which was nice.
Well, I was looking at it and thinking that the plus 12 was more likely to be useful than the mortal wound on the unmodified 6.
Yeah, the mortal wound side of it's just gravy at that point. The extra range is the cool bit.
That's it.
both of those, unfortunately, pale in comparison to Humbling Cruelty.
Which, again, I love the name.
Games Workshop put a lot of effort into this, and I really like that they have. I was actually talking to a friend of mine in the UK who, without giving too much away about him, is ex-company, and I won't say what part of the company.
Okay.
He knows the guy who wrote this stuff, and they went out of their way to try and make it as themed and cool sounding as possible, because it fits in with what the army is all about.
Yeah.
So it's really nice to hear that there was a lot of thought put into the names.
So Humbling Cruelty, when this model hits an enemy unit, that unit is pinned till the start of your next turn, subtracting 2 inches from its movement and losing the ability to fire Overwatch. So it does sound more like Crippling Cruelty.
Yeah. Those last 6 words, losing the ability to fire Overwatch, are pretty much gold as far as Harlequins are concerned. My one today that had this ability had just a standard gun. He was 45 points with no upgrades. He walked around with his standard gun. He gets 3 shots. He hits on 2s. If he advances, he only hits on 3s. But he only needs 1 hit out of 3 shots. And as soon as he hits you, because it doesn't rely on wounds, it just relies on hits, there's no Overwatch. So having one Death Jester running around with a squad of 12 Harlequins that keeps up with them because he moves the same as them, everything else, and then when he gets to a point where they're going to charge, he goes, oh, cool. 3 shots. I don't care if I kill a single model. I just want you to stop firing Overwatch. The -2...
Well, I don't need you to die. I just need you to not make me die.
Yeah.
To be honest.
The -2 movement today was really quite surprising as well, because I shot it at Grav Centurions. The Centurions only move 4 inches a turn.
Yeah, that's it.
So now they're moving
It's
2
now
inches a
taking
turn.
2 turns to get them to move.
Well, the beauty of this as well is those Centurions were also trying then to shoot at me, and I was adding 6 inches to their range. So they're now only moving 2 inches. The guns are only 24 inches, and I'm adding 6 inches of penalty. So you can kind of stack a lot of that.
Yeah.
Like it's an 8-inch deduction in the threat range, essentially. I would 100% assume that anyone who's not running pure Harlequins is going to run 2 Death Jesters in a Vanguard to add Harlequins to another Elder army.
Yeah.
One will be Humbling Cruelty, and the other will be Harvester of Torment. And I think that's just a given.
It's interesting because I do see that Harvester of Torment getting quite a bit of
just keep
positivity.
They just keep overlooking that 6 model thing. And it wasn't until I hit the table today and I said to Rich, okay, cool, this is what this does. And he went, oh, I don't have anyone. And I've gone, God damn it.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's like, you're not going to have that conversation with Orc players because they're always going to have units.
Yeah, they're probably going to have more than 6.
Same with Genestealer Cults, Tyranids. They will be multiple wounds, and you'll get a lot of mileage out of it. And then you'll hit a Custodes army.
I was going to say, if you're playing against Custodes or Knights, then you probably...
it's a worthless combo. It doesn't do anything.
And it comes down to, again, if you're playing with your friends, then you know what your friends play. But if you are playing at an event, then what are people playing?
And I mean, we deliberately today didn't share lists before the game. We wrote them separately and went, we're just going to bring them.
Yeah.
So there was no tailoring for him or me because, like I say, he brought Grav Centurions and I have no armor. And I brought this combination and he had no units that it actually worked on. But it highlights an issue with that is that having the opportunity to choose whether you put that relic on is really important because you don't want to waste a relic.
When did you write your army?
It depends on the tournament.
No. For this game, when did you write your army list?
3 days ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was actually done. The only thing that changed 3 days ago, I actually had it written, and then we were having a conversation whether it was going to be 1750 or 2K. And I went, I'll find the incarn and I'll slap some paint on it and...
We'll bump it up to 2.
We'll bump it up to 2. So, yeah.
All right. Are we ready for Solitaire?
Yep.
Okay. Solitaires can replace their Blitz ability once per game, move and attack boost with one of the following: Shocking Emergence, Chromatic Rush, and Unnatural Acrobatics. I yawned and my eyes have gone all blurry. Struggled to read that, sorry.
I hate my Solitaire. He's a putz. I really despise him.
I think that's a bad word.
I don't know. I really despise my Solitaire. I hate him. He never does what I want. On pay, I see those people ranting and raving how awesome he is.
They're not ranting and raving. They're celebrating how
mine
awesome
clearly
he is.
hates me.
Well,
It hasn't. I've had him since 6th edition when that plastic model came out.
Oh, yeah, we did talk about this, didn't we?
So today, I declared a charge against 5 Space Marine scouts. Actually, it wasn't even 5. I think it was 2 because I'd killed a couple of them.
Mm-hmm.
I had a 9-inch charge to make.
Mm-hmm.
He rolled Overwatch, only hitting on 6s,
Mm-hmm.
wounding on 4s, and me saving on 3s. He had 4 shots and did 2 wounds on Overwatch, and then I failed my charge. I then had him dominate my Solitaire and use my Solitaire to attack my own Death Jester with his 8 attacks. He failed to do a single wound to my own models, which was a pleasant surprise, but then proceeded to get charged by standard Space Marine intercessors and beaten to death. And that included him having one of these abilities for -1 to hit.
This is quite a common theme with
I
the Solitaire.
hate my Solitaire.
And haven't you got another one?
I have a converted one for this new army. And going through my bits box when I was building this army,
Yeah.
I have another one in blister.
So, I think, was the plan not, if this one failed, you were going to get the other one ready and put it on the table and see how that went, and if that one failed as well, then you were selling the blister pack and
Yep.
you were taking the Solitaire out of the army?
Yep.
Right, okay, so we're up to phase 2 of that.
Yep.
If anyone's looking for a Solitaire, then
Well, you can't buy him. He's only mail order only. And with mail order at the moment, they're actually quite hard to come by. So I do have a Solitaire sat here.
possibly 2.
Well, no, the second one's a conversion. He's staying, but
No,
whether
I meant the old one.
the
and
old
one.
one.
That's still in the blister.
the old one needs to be burnt.
Okay, shocking emergence. Solitaire
Okay.
can deep strike, rolls 3d6, discard the lowest for charges as they turn on the turn they arrive.
Okay, so in my opinion, the only one of these 3 you actually want to take, in my opinion, is Unnatural Acrobatics, and only by spending a command point to keep Blitz. Because the benefits that you get from Blitz outweigh the... Actually, I say in general, that's my thought process, is the Blitz is just better. So Blitz lets you roll 2 dice, add it to your movement value for a turn, and you go from 8 attacks to 10 attacks for that turn.
Okay.
So...
Chromatic Rush sounds good. Tell me why that's not good.
Okay, I'll start with Shocking Emergence.
Okay, well,
Shocking
that's where I started, and you moved on to the end. So I was trying to bring this to the middle, and now
Okay.
you've gone to the beginning.
Shocking Emergence. Shocking Emergence is a free deep strike, which is fine. My argument for not having it is with Blitz, with a movement of 12 plus 2d6, and then potentially Twilight Pathways as well for a double move. He can be anywhere he needs to be the turn he blitzes that you can get with deep strike.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm doing that with Blitz, I don't need the 3d6 discard the lowest for charges, and I've got more attacks. So I don't see... And on top of that, if I use Shocking Emergence, I can't Blitz on the turn that I use that, which is another detriment as far as I'm concerned.
Mm-hmm.
Chromatic Rush is a really cool combo ability because it means that he will always move 18 inches a turn. But you can't advance when you Blitz. So it's either 12 plus 2d6 or a flat 18.
Okay.
If I could advance and Blitz, absolutely, Chromatic Rush would be amazing. What's most interesting about Chromatic Rush is combining it with a Midnight Sorrow Solitaire.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Midnight Sorrow rules give you a buff already to your Consolidate. So instead of consolidating... Normally you consolidate 3. This lets him consolidate another 3. And then Midnight Sorrow, from memory... I'm going to actually look it up now to make sure I'm correct on this. Midnight Sorrow... Okay, so Midnight Sorrow changes their Consolidate from 3 inches to 6 inches.
Yeah.
And this gives him another 3. So it means like a 9-inch Consolidate.
Yeah.
Which is pretty hilarious when most units, after they finish fighting, move 3. And this guy goes, yeah, no, 9.
I'm going 9, yeah.
So there is a
So you
cool...
instantly move around the board.
Yeah. See, for me, though, it's worthless because mine will never get to a point of consolidating because he fails and dies. So...
Yeah,
I'm a little bit biased in
I
this
think
regard.
maybe we might need to think about if that wasn't the case.
You mean I need to let go of my hatred for mine's inability to do anything other than cost me 98 points and die?
Potato, potato.
Unnatural Acrobatics, though, is my favourite.
Mm-hmm.
Because the -1 to hit built in works in combat, makes him harder to kill in combat, works in shoot him, and combined with his character rule just makes him even harder to deal with. And... anything that adds more negatives to hit in the Harlequin army only increases durability.
Sure.
you can actually use that to kind of dictate the flow of incoming fire as well, because there's more. If there's lots of negatives to hit in front of you and something that doesn't, your opponent's often just going to shoot the thing that doesn't have negatives to hit.
Yeah.
So...
And then these can be stacked again. So lightning fast reactions, Veil of Tears, you're at -3 by then.
So in theory, you can stack it out. Just with Harlequins, you can stack it to -4.
-4 with the Fog of Dreams as well.
Yeah. If you actually want to be silly and throw in Craftworld Eldar, you can also stack it out with... it's not enhance. It's the reverse of the Warlock Power Enhance, which basically is another -1 to hit in combat. And I've seen a few people go, "Oh, take the Suit of Hidden Knives and stack all the negatives on."
Yeah.
And I've said it on a few different podcasts. The Suit of Knives, in a fun game with an opponent who's cruisy, who doesn't really necessarily understand what's about to happen, works hilariously. As soon as you're dealing with someone at a tournament, the chances are they know the combo, and it's never going to fly because it's too easy to counter. So the Suit of Hidden Knives works on a theory that every time you roll a 1 to hit, the opponent, the model, the unit that rolls the 1 takes mortal wounds if you roll a 2+.
2+, yeah.
So by stacking out to -4, it basically means that if you only hit on 3s, you can't hit me because obviously there's too many penalties. And it means that on a 1 to a 5, if you roll a hit roll of a 1 to 5, it means that on a 2+, you're dealing mortal wounds to yourself. Sounds hilarious. The problem is that when you go in, so you have to kind of telegraph it when it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So you've got a Solitaire. He's already got the -1 to hit. You've cast Veil of Tears on him. You've then had to cast Fog of Dreams on the enemy unit. So it's going to be very clear what's about to happen. He goes into combat, and he'll often be blitzing. If he's not, he's still 8 attacks. At this point, he's -3 to hit. And at -3 to hit, your opponent's going, okay, I'm not going to be hitting a lot.
Yeah.
And I know you've got the Suit of Hidden Knives. I'm going to take models in base-to-base contact with you first. Just take them off if I lose any. And then in my combat phase, I'm not going to pile in.
Yeah.
Because the less models that fight for me, the better. Because if I've got a squad of 30 boys that everyone gets to fight, I'm going to kill my own squad. If I've got one dude who gets to fight, and he kills himself, it's bad, but it's not the end of the world. So what ends up happening is you charge in, you kill, if your Solitaire wants to do what it should do, it charges in at 30 Orc boys, it kills 4 or 5. The Orcs then, if they're careful, and obviously you then get to pile in as well, you get to your Consolidate move, which is obviously where the Midnight Sorrow combo, where you can pile in 9 inches, is hilarious. But even so, you pile in, you'll get 3 or 4 in combat range. The rest of them then choose not to pile in themselves when they fight. They swing at you with their 3 attacks apiece, and they kill another probably 8 Orcs. They take the ones that are in base to base and closest to you off. They choose not to pile in after the fight. And now in their turn, they're not in combat with you, they haven't fallen back, and they're just going to shoot you to bits. Or use flamers, or... The problem with the suit is it relies on a 2 CP stratagem, 2 psychic powers, potentially a 3rd CP to get the extra pivotal roll if you want to keep blitz.
Yeah.
And you're using one of your very valuable relic slots.
Yeah.
Which there's so many good relics now, using the Suit of Hidden Knives is even less likely, for something that can be mitigated and, or you turn it to a game where there's only 5 Space Marines in a squad and you're left going...
oops.
So, I think Unnatural Acrobatics is great, but not because it makes the Suit of Hidden Knives better. I think it's just too easy to mitigate. I've seen people argue with me on that, and having used it a few times, when it works, it's so funny. But if you're going to give something to the Solitaire, you give him Kegarax Rose, because that just ups his damage output, and I'd rather know what damage is coming rather than my opponent being able to mitigate what I think I can do. So... But then again, the Solitaire, well, I don't like him very much at the moment. Moving on. Stratagems.
Stratagems.
I used a few of these today. I didn't use all of them.
Just trying to see how many stratagems there are.
I think there's like 8? 9? I think it's 9.
I get 9.
We've already talked about pivotal role, which is the
Yes.
one that lets you add a new pivotal role and keep your existing basic rule.
Mm-hmm.
Great for...
For 1 CP.
Yep, great for 3 or 4 of them. Troopmaster, Shadowseer, Solitaire, yes. Death Jester, probably not.
Mm-hmm.
Polychromatic Spray.
Storm.
Oh, that's right, it's Storm. I don't know. Oh, Polychromatic Spray is a D&D spell.
That's 2 CP.
Yes, so this one here I've seen a lot of people say is average because of ITC. I think this is gold. I don't think it can be understated enough how good this stratagem is, because it lets you redeploy 3 Harlequin units, and more importantly, unlike most of these sorts of stratagems, it lets you then combo that with other stratagems that let you put them into Webway Assault.
Yeah.
Most of them don't let you do that.
Mm.
And the ability to then null deploy on a flank and then redeploy units onto that flank, the ability to shift the weight of the deployment from one space to another, to rip stuff off the table, to sucker in people's deployments, and then, if you're deploying first, it's a brilliant stratagem. If you're deploying second, I've seen people go, oh, it's rubbish. It happens at the start of the first battle round, which is important because it means you know who's going first and your opponent's already done any scout moves or anything sneaky like that. Mm-hmm. So you can actually then move things around after you've seen what's going to happen, whether they've seized on you or not. There's a lot of value in it for that sort of stuff. Now, ITC's taken out seize.
Yeah.
I still think there's value in it, even if you've gone second, because it lets you, again, with the scout moves and those sorts of things, it'll let you... Like, Gene's still a cult at the moment, are doing a lot of scouting using ridge runners. Okay, all these vehicles scout move over this way. Cool, now we're just going to pick those units up and get them all out of the way. So there are definitely uses for it in ITC. It gets a lot of value as an attacker. It's less value as a defender, but I still think it's a fantastic stratagem. It's well worth thinking about if you've got the terrain to utilise it. Yeah, very much. I think that's one that people just don't appreciate.
Next one, Murderous Entrance. So this is 2 CP as well.
Yep. This is what happens when you give all of your Harlequins knife sharpeners before they go into combat. 2 command points to add +1 damage for all of their weapons. In the fight phase only, I should point out. If you could do it to their guns, that'd be amazing. What it means is that all of those Primaris squads that laugh at 1 damage Harlequins now have to sort of take a breath when they get charged, because even their basic swords with no AP on a failed save kill a Primaris Marine. It's one that I considered using today, but I almost feel like it's diminishing returns the bigger the squads are, which seems counterintuitive because you're throwing 60-something dice at a squad. Having them all being 2 damage minimum seems really good.
Yeah.
But if you're throwing 60 dice at them, where you're...
Do you need that?
Do you need the buff? So I actually feel like Murderous Entrance is... there's an argument for using it on a Solitaire.
Yeah.
For a Blitz.
It would be if you didn't hate your Solitaire.
Yeah. Mine would be a Troopmaster like I geared up earlier.
Yeah.
Particularly if you're then also going to stack it with Twilight Fang and a few of the other things. Making him flat 3 damage in combat could be really good if he's packing 10 attacks.
Yeah.
I can definitely see cases where you want to throw a big squad of 12 into something like a Knight, or a big target, like 10, 12, 14 wounds, tanks, like big heavy stuff. You go, no, okay, every failed save needs to count, so here's 60 attacks that are 2 damage each. Also important to note, you can use that on the bikes, which makes them 3 damage each. So my Frozen Stars bikes today, with 4 attacks each on the charge, could be an awful lot of output in the right circumstance. Yeah. So 2 CP is quite expensive though. If it was 1 CP, I'd use it a lot. At 2 CP, you're going to be selective about when you use it. It's going to be critical charges.
Yeah. Another 2 CP, the Curtain Falls.
Oh, this is so good. This is one that I used today that I comboed with War Dancer. And Richard was going, you doing what now? What? So 2 command points. When a Harlequin's unit would consolidate, until the end of the phase, that unit can move, including fallback, instead of consolidating. Note that the same... so there's a comment here that it creates some interesting interactions with some things. So today I declared a charge with my bikes at an Ironclad Dreadnought and at a Sicarian, Relic Sicarian that was behind it. Now, due to the positioning of it, I was in range to charge the Sicarian, but physically was never going to be able to... it was like 11.5 inches away.
Yeah.
So I was technically in range to charge it, but there was nowhere I could put the bikes. They physically wouldn't fit anywhere. And I went, okay, I know I'm going to hit the Dreadnought. I'm only 7 inches away from the Dreadnought. So I charged, hit the Dreadnought, dealt some damage. I think I did 4 wounds to it or something. Then I spent 2 CP for a Curtain Falls, and then moved 16 inches from the Dreadnought that was only 3 inches in front of the Sicarian to begin with, and I moved them all the way onto the other side of the Sicarian to 2 inches away from the Sicarian. At the end of the combat phase, so the bikes are now no longer in combat, the Dreadnought didn't get to swing. The end of the combat phase rolls around, I spend 3 command points on War Dancer to let the bikes fight again at the end of the fight phase. That means they get a 3-inch pile-in, which let me pile into the closest enemy unit, which was the Sicarian. And because I declared him as a target of my attacks in the charge phase, I could fight him. So it let me completely avoid the combat Dreadnought and let me pick up 16 inches of movement in the fight phase. So I've moved 22 inches in the movement phase. Then I can move 22 inches in the psychic phase. Then I can 2d6 in the charge phase. Then I can move 16 inches in the combat phase. And then I still get to consolidate after I fought. It's just insane mobility.
Yeah.
And the fact that I was able to hit the Dreadnought, damage the Dreadnought, jump over, damage the Sicarian, and more importantly, tag it so it couldn't shoot me, left Richard going, that was 5 command points, but oh my god, that was so
Possibly
good.
worth it? Yeah.
I can see a lot of players getting really frustrated with the Curtain Falls because the ability to go in, fight, and then just bail without actually you ever getting to swing at them is going to be all kinds of frustrating for people. And again, you'll probably get diminishing returns if you're running masses of combat units, where one unit's going to need to do it in that sort of environment to be a really critical result. But if, like today, when I had these bikes go in and just be a frustrating, annoying swarm, do some damage, bounce over, stop something else shooting, do more damage, you just...
Yeah, it's just, again, at 2 CP, this is where this need to have...
Well, I used 5 in that turn just to do that little combo. It was definitely worth it, but geez, that's expensive.
Because if it hadn't worked, then you're down to, well, you got 4 left potentially.
Yeah. So that's one that's going to mess with people, so much so.
Cheaper at only 1 CP. We've got Twilight Encore.
Yeah. So this basically lets when an enemy unit falls back from a Harlequin troop, the troop can then consolidate up to 6 inches, ending up closer to the unit that fell back or the closest enemy unit.
Wait, what? Say it again slowly.
Okay, I'll read the stratagem because it is a weirdly worded one. So, use this stratagem in your opponent's movement phase when an enemy unit within 1 inch of a Harlequin troop unit falls back. So normally, you've been charged by Harlequins and you've survived.
Yes.
Your unit chooses to fall back from my Harlequin troop. Now, it only works on the troop, so it doesn't work on characters or bikes.
And after that, the troop can then consolidate, move up to 6 inches to get closer to you again, or another enemy unit, which means you can then try and...
So the Harlequin troop then consolidates. The key word there is consolidate. Up to 6 inches. And each model in the troop unit must end the move closer to that enemy unit or the nearest enemy model.
Okay.
So that's a choice. You don't have to go to one or the other. The important part, though, is it's a consolidate, not a move.
Okay.
Because if it was a move as if it was the movement phase,
you
can't end within 1.
Ah.
But because it specifically says consolidate allows you to get within 1 of an enemy unit. So I know that I've seen a couple of the articles going, there's some controversy over this because you can't technically end up within 1 inch of an enemy model.
It's not movement phase.
It's not, well, it does happen in the movement phase, but you're not making a move. You're making a consolidate. And when you look up the rules for consolidate, it allows that. So as it's written now, as a TO, I can only say that we always have tried to go as close to rules as written as possible. I know the guys at, I think it was Goonhammer, who were kind of going, oh, you know, maybe not. My argument would be, it says consolidate. If it said a 6-inch move, then absolutely. But a 6-inch consolidate is pretty clear to me. The fun thing about that is most infantry only move 6. So if you're within one of a Harlequin unit and fall back, it just moves straight along with you for one command point. If you've hit it with... if you've pinned it earlier using the no overwatch, which is potential because you've just charged them and they've then chosen to fall back, they've only got a 4-inch move. So at that point, you have to have like a 9-inch move to get away from them. So keeping stuff locked in combat is completely viable. You can also do things like a Lehman Russ tank, for example, or a repulsor that wants to shoot twice, now has to move. So it can't shoot twice. It's having to move further.
Yeah.
And because you can't advance when you fall back, it's even harder. So it's definitely a stratagem that's another one that's going to make people go, are you what?
Yeah, I like that you just censored yourself there, so well done.
So yeah, that's one that I didn't get to use today, but did go, oh, if I had the command points.
And, well, it's only 1 CP as well.
Yeah, but by the time I actually had a situation to use
it, you had gotten unlocked.
Yeah, I got none left.
Back up to 2 CP, Foes of the Mind.
Like I said, I used this at the start of the game today. The Shield from Harm ability affects all units within range rather than just the infantry. It makes the bikes and the vehicles insanely durable because you basically, with that -1 to wound, the best you can ever manage is a 3 to wound while you're in that aura. Now, if you're shooting bolt guns at Harlequins, you'd normally wound on 3s, now you're wounding on 4s. Against bolters versus the bikes, you'd normally wound on 4s, now you're wounding on 5s. And against the vehicles, you're normally wounding on 5s, now you're wounding on 6s. That's a significant jump when you've then got to stack an invulnerable save and minuses to hit on the bikes and the vehicles. So for 2 CP, it's the Harlequin's equivalent of prepared positions. The prepared position strat is a generic strat for everyone, which is 2 command points, and everyone counts as being in cover. Harlequins will never use that because their armor saves either nothing or 6+, and they've got an invulnerable save. This is their equivalent. And I can see that, you know, it'll be a pretty standard thing to spend in most Harlequins if you're not going first. You'll pop that just to make sure that you're not taking too much harm.
Yeah, sure.
It's what I did today. As soon as Richard seized on me, I went, okay, there goes 2 CP. And it worked really well because I took 3 damage when you stacked that out with everything else. So, yeah, a good one, but I think it'll be an early game strat and then you'll leave it behind after turn 1 or turn 2.
This one doesn't sound too brilliant to me, but I have not been known to be wrong. 1 CP for Mythic Roll. So it can only be used once.
Yeah. Now, this is one of the interesting ones because it does cross factions.
Okay.
Because it works, select 1 Eldari unit, not 1 Harlequin unit. So if you've got... I think do you need a Shadow Seer in the... I think you need a Shadow Seer to use this stratagem as well, from memory. Yeah, you do need a Shadow Seer. So you'll see this used by people who pop a Vanguard or something into another Elder army.
Yeah.
And it's basically 1 command point to give a friendly unit a free reroll to hit or wound every turn. Every time it shoots or fights. It operates in multiple phases. Which doesn't sound brilliant for 1 command point, but things like a Death Jester, where it's only got 1 shot, but if it hits, it counts as 3 hits. When you're only hitting your 1 shot hitting on 2s, well, you know, giving him that free reroll every turn, you might go, yeah, okay, I want to make sure he's hitting every turn. That's quite useful. Things like Illic Night Spear's sniper rifle from the Craftworld range, he hits on 2s again, but, you know, things miss. Giving him that free reroll is kind of nice. Any of those single shotguns, you might even do it to a Wraith Knight. Where you've got low volume, high power shots where you want to make sure every one of them is worth something. there is a little bit of value there. For 1 CP, it affects you for the whole game, which is, if you're going to re-roll every turn...
And I think that's probably where I was like, because it says can only be used once, but...
It lasts the whole game.
The whole game.
So...
Still, compared to some of the others.
Yeah, look, it's one that... It's a cool one because it shows that they're meant to ally in with other Eldar, because it affects all Eldar rather than just Harlequins.
Yeah.
But I think it's only going to be, like... the craft world have an ability, when they build their own craft worlds, to get the same ability for every single model in the army for free.
Yeah.
Are you going to do that with them? You're probably not. Interestingly enough, it's something to note, it doesn't work with Inari.
Oh.
Because the Inari rules clearly state that they can't be affected by any other stratagem outside of the Inari ones. So it's not written here, it's written in the Inari rules.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it'd be great for Inari. Because, again, free rerolls to hit and wound are really good.
I stand by my initial thoughts. I'm not a fan of that one.
No, it's one that I looked at and went, oh, it's cool, but I'm not going to do it.
Yeah. 1 CP again for Eye of Damnation. I had a bit of a giggle.
Yeah,
when
Solitaire.
the Solitaire is slain.
If you're not running Midnight Sorrow, which has its own stratagem called No Price Too Steep, I would always... If you've got a Midnight Sorrow, you would always use No Price Too Steep. It's just better.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got 1 CP left, your Solitaire's gone in and hasn't killed whatever he's charged, but it's close to death, yeah, you know what? On a 2+ take D3 mortal wounds, it might be worth...
If I'm going down, I'm going to take you with me.
If I've got the CP up my sleeve and I only need to deal, say, 2 damage to kill you, yeah, you might pop it and try and bring down whatever it was that you were fighting.
Could you stop saying pop it?
Okay.
Thanks.
You might spend the 1 CP in order to use the stratagem.
Thank you, darling. I appreciate it.
And thus, hopefully, apply a D3 mortal wounds on a roll of a 2 or higher on a D6.
Will you be speaking like that for the rest of the episode?
No, just for this bit because you didn't like me to saying pop it. Yeah, maybe. My Solitaire never lives that long. He almost never gets to combat anyway and dies when he gets looked at sideways.
So you've never used that one?
Well, today he didn't get the chance to. He died shooting again.
All right, last one, since I'll choose not to dwell on how rubbish your
Stupid
Solitaire is. Virtuoso of the Webway, 1 CP.
This is another jank. I've seen the word used and I really like it for Harlequins. It's janky. It basically gives you a free redeploy of a Harlequin. You pick it up at the end of the movement phase. It's only infantry. And then you put them anywhere else on the table at the end of your next movement phase, as per normal deep strike. So 9, as long as it's not within 1 when I pick it up and not within 9 when I put it down. And the ability late game in particular for 1 command point, if you keep 1 up your sleeve for sort of turn 4, turn 5, when you're fishing for a specific objective, or you need to get line breaker, or you need to hold more in ITC and there's an objective over there that's not contested, the ability to pick up a squad or character for 1 command point and just go, cool, I'm scoring that point.
That seems quite awesome.
Is pretty good. You save it for turn 4. Doing it turn 6 is obviously pointless. And if you're going random game length, holding it till turn 5 might see you give up kill points if you're not on the table. So turn 4 is the pivotal turn. It's a really good power. And it'll let you then support, like if you tried to do the ballistic missile thing turn 2, for example, you can then go, cool, I'm going to pick up these 12 Harlequins, and then in turn 2 you can then do your ballistic missile Troop Master using Sky Strider and a Solitaire and a double moving bike unit and his 12 Harlequins charging as well. You can kind of overwhelm things by just adding unit after unit after unit. So it's another one that's going to frustrate people because there's a unit there. Oh, it's gone. God damn it. Where did it go? Oh, it's 70 inches across the other side of the table now. So I didn't get to use it today, but it's cool. I like it.
I know we've spoken about some of the relics. Are we going to...
We'll super quickly cover them because
awesome.
these...
I'm just thinking that we've been talking for a really long time.
Well, tough. It's like the Genes to the Cold episode, and we've abridged this because there's lots I could talk about.
Okay, well, we might do a second one.
Right, relics.
Yeah, relics. Shadowstone.
Really, really good. You should be taking it if you're going to run the double Shadow Seer with Veil of Illusion and Shield from Harm.
Because it increases the range of the Shadow Seer's aura and ability And powers by 3.
Yep. The most important part of that isn't just the auras. It increases the psychic powers by 3, which means Smite becomes 21. Twilight Pathways doubles its range from 3 to 6, which makes it a lot more utilitarian for casting. Because normally you have to be within 3 inches of a friendly unit to cast it, which means that if he rolls a 1 for his advance and your unit rolls a 6, you have to slow the unit down to keep them in range. Mm-hmm. At a 6-inch range, you can't fail that now. It also lets you start messing around with if you cast... I found myself today doing this, casting... I can't think of that. Web... It's the one that gives you an aura of Feel No Pain. A 6-inch aura of 6+ Feel No Pain. Now, it's a 9-inch aura of Feel No Pain. You can really stack it out and make a lot of use out of it if you're going to give the Shadow Seer the right powers and things to make the best out of it. It's one that is almost mandatory for me, and it certainly will be mandatory for my infantry version.
I don't know if I can pronounce
Kegarak?
it. I was going to say, is it Kegarak? But it looks like it's Irish and it should actually be said something
Segarak?
like... Well, I was thinking like Siobhan.
I've heard the Games Workshop stuff call it Kegarak. Mm-hmm. Kegarak's Lament is the Death Jester's new gun. It's brilliant because it's not mask specific, which is the problem with Curtainfall. Curtainfall's the other relic cannon, and it's tied to a specific mask. This one isn't. It's important to note here that while it's a really good gun, and you should probably almost always take it, like we said earlier, it's not a Shrieker cannon, which means that some of the original stratagems in the main Harlequin Codex don't work on it. Because they specifically say a Shrieker cannon or Curtainfall, and this is neither.
Yeah.
So it's just worth, before you get all hyped up looking at the couple of Shrieker, it's probably not going to work because they don't work with this gun. It is a really good gun.
Perfect.
And if you've got enemy units of 6 or more and you've got Harvester of Torments, you'll have a very good day.
Beautiful. Twilight Fang.
I used this today. I really like it. The fact that you can just replace his standard close combat weapon instead of a power sword means that you save yourself 4 points straight away. Mm-hmm. The +2 strength is fantastic, makes him strength 5. If he keeps Choreographer of War, he's getting rerolls on top of that, which is great. Neg 3 is fantastic, which means your opponent's generally only going to be saving on 5s or having an invul. Flat 2 damage, beautiful. Now let's give him additional attacks equal to the current battle round number. Mm-hmm. When I charged my Troop Master in today, it was turn
5?
It was turn 4.
Oh wow!
He starts with 5 attacks. He gets +1 because he was Frozen Stars today, and then he gets +4 because it's turn 4. That was pretty horrific.
Yeah.
It's a really good weapon. It's one that I can see me using on a Troop Master regularly now. It's better than the Storied Sword, which was the other power sword variant that you could get access to. Really good. It's almost an auto take. I'd take the Shadowstone first, but this is pretty close second.
Veil of Tears.
It's interesting. It's not good enough compared to everything else. If I could take more than 3 relics, that's the biggest hurdle, is you only get 3. Because the Harlequins are still stuck with the stratagem where you get 1 for free. If you want a second one, it's 1 command point. If you want another one after that, it's 2 more command points.
So you're paying 3.
3 command points for 3 relics, and then I can't have any more.
Yeah.
So the first failed save every turn is nice, because, again, you'd put it on a Solitaire with his 3-up invulnerable. But my Solitaire wouldn't care.
Yeah.
It'd just take him an extra dice to die. It's cute,
a waste of,
but it's not worth you. There's just too many other good relics to spend it on at the moment. If they had the 1-for-1 command point thing, where for every command point you spent, you got a relic, you might think about it. But I don't see myself using it.
Domino Shroud.
This is another janky one.
Yeah, so the ability to teleport, well, essentially, 12 inches at the end of any phase.
Yeah. So because it happens at the end of any phase, you can do it in your opponent's turn. But it is only once per game, which is that if you could do it once per turn,
once per battle,
then it'd be an auto take. Once per battle, it's probably a bit limited. It does let you do some really weird stuff on the table. And again, I keep going back to a Solitaire with it, where you've...
I don't know why you keep going back to a solitaire.
Because the
you want to get rid
solitaire's
of your solitaire.
yeah, but it's the most mobile thing that can have it.
Well, there's no point being mobile if it's dead.
There is that. Maybe my new solitaire will be better, but the current one, no, he doesn't deserve anything other than to sit on the shelf for the rest of his existence.
Not being dusted.
He does make some really it makes some really interesting stuff you can do with this ability, because if you've got something that moves fast enough and far enough, it can be on one side of the table and then the other side of the table, then back to the middle again. It's hard to describe with an audio file that you're listening to. Some of the stuff you can do on the table with this relic.
Okay, we'll write it down and we'll come back to it.
But is it good enough compared to the other relics that you already have access to be one of the three? Probably not. Not when you've got the stratagems that let you do similar stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so...
Destiny's Jest.
Destiny's Jest. So with this one, you can select one of the following effects during deployment or roll randomly for 2.
Yeah.
Okay, no, I had a question, but actually when I read it, it answered it for me.
Yeah, you can't re-roll. You re-roll duplicates. You can't have the same thing twice. If you could have the same thing twice, it'd be worth taking. As it stands now, it's cool, but it's not good enough with other things in play.
So do you want to share what all of those things are
So
that you
it's
can choose from?
+1 attack, +1 strength, +1 toughness, +1 wound, +3 inches of movement, or an additional AP for all melee weapons.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you consider where this relic can go, it's only the 4 characters that can take it.
Yep.
All 6 of those options are good for a solitaire.
Mm-hmm.
Solitaire gets a benefit from all of those. The Troop Master will get a benefit from all of those. The Death Jester doesn't care about attacks, strength, and a melee weapon. So only half of them are of any value to him. And even those 3 that have value to him, the movement, the wounds, and the toughness... Wounds and toughness only come into play if you can target him. He's a character, and he shouldn't be getting targeted easily. And the movement thing, he's got a ranged weapon that's at least 24 inches, and he moves 8 already. So he probably doesn't care about this relic. It doesn't do enough for him. The Troop Master, like I've already said, yes. The Shadow Seer, probably. He gets something out of all of it as well. But when you come back to other relics you can hand out... to get random effects from that, you just kind of go, oh, cool, like I really want combat abilities. Oh, I got movement and toughness. On one model, it's not... Like, if it affected a squad, if you could go Destiny's Jest, you give it to a character, so it takes up his relic slot, but then at the start of the game, select a friendly unit in your... Like, a friendly troop unit in your army, and roll twice on this chart for that unit, I'd take it.
Yeah.
For one model, it's just not... Again, comparing it to everything else, it's just not worth taking.
And not when you're so limited with choices.
Yeah. So there's a lot to digest there.
There certainly is.
I really, really like... It feels like it's put a lot of breath into the army, but what I also found today is, of all of the stuff that's there, it's the pivotal roles that are the most important. Because the stratagems are a finite resource. The relics only work when you can put the characters in a position where those relics have an effect. Whereas the pivotal roles affected every turn that they were on the table.
Yeah.
And so while some of the stratagems are really... They mess with your heads, and the some of the relics are amazingly good, all of those pivotal roles are actually what does the most work in bringing the army up. The minus ranges and the rerolls to charge and... the no Overwatch and all those little things that just happen every turn. You're not rolling dice to make them work. You're not having command points spent. They just happen. That's where the most value comes from, in my mind. Having used them today, that's what it felt like, is every single turn it was, Darkness's Bite does this, or, the Jest Inescapable is this. It was, it felt like those are going to be where the most value lies, and getting the right roles for the way you build your army is the most important thing. So, I can keep going on and on about these, but I won't.
Yeah, and I think I've probably got some different questions and could potentially take this in a different direction with some thoughts around some different things, but I'm aware that we've been going through this for quite some time, so I'm wondering if some of those different conversations around how this compares to other armies and what it's going to be like on the table and all of that kind of stuff. I'm wondering whether or not that might need to be held off for another episode.
Well, we did a couple of episodes on the Gene Stealer cult, so we might have to do a second one on Harlequins.
Yeah.
So that's a brief review. A brief, it's an hour and 20 minutes.
Was that all?
Yeah.
It felt a lot longer.
Looking at all the relics and stratagems and things, this White Dwarf should be out within the next couple of weeks. It's a June of 2020 White Dwarf.
And who knows? Maybe we're totally wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe we were ill-informed.
I enjoyed it.
That would actually be hilarious.
Look, for a Harlequin, like, that could be a thing. Yeah. And if it weren't for the fact people were dumb enough to take photos with their thumbs in the in the frame.
I think dumb is a harsh word.
Okay, yeah, dumb's the wrong word. But if you're gonna, well, then again, it could be the ultimate prank.
Yeah, exactly.
The problem is, of course, the preview articles that have put on Community kind of validate it all. But
and could also be part of the
look,
prank.
if it was April, I'd be like in the end of March.
I think we missed April Fools.
Yeah,
so.
well, given everything going on.
Yeah. All right, let's wrap it up. We'll
All
come
right.
back to say goodbye.
All right. So, with the first of what will probably be a series on Harlequins at the moment.
Maybe not. I might have lost interest in a fortnight. Just at the moment, I've got thoughts and questions and could potentially come up with another podcast. But like I said,
my biggest problem
in a
is still going to be
fortnight might
command
gone.
points.
And yeah, and as I said, that's the
Well,
next
we-
topic for the podcast for the
Yeah.
patrons one around CP. It's going to be interesting having that conversation around what the intention of that had been compared to what that looks like
I still
now.
think the intention of that's intact in that planning your CP is important, but I think that this is the first time in 8th edition 40k that I've gone, oh no, I need 10, 12, 14 or more command points for an Elder army. I've not had that with my Drakari, I've not had that with my Craft World, and even prior to this, I felt like 8 or 9 was enough with Harlequins.
Yeah.
This is the first time I've gotten to the table and gone, I've only got 7. Oh, this is not good. So, yeah, it's now going to be a CP hungry army to get all of its tricks happening, and I think planning for which tricks you need to use and which tricks you would like to use are two different things.
And those are that's probably something that I would like to touch on in the next episode if I'm still interested in a fortnight, around that idea of the word tricks.
Yeah.
And how does that fit into it, and what? So you obviously didn't know what was in my head around what I wanted to talk about in the next episode, but it's interesting that you've chosen the word tricks, because when you use words like that, how does that change people's concepts of that army?
Yeah, that's true.
And I think that this sometimes happens with some of the other armies in that they become gimmicky armies.
I think the problem with Harlequins is that they break a lot of the core rules anyway. And there's parts of this, like what I did today with the fight, run away, pile in somewhere else and fight there again. It cost me a lot of command points. But
You didn't have many.
the look on Richard's face when I did it was one of, are you kidding me right now? And there's going to be a lot, like Harlequins already did that a little bit with the way they operated on the table. They ignore a lot of the core stuff. This turns that up another notch where you're left going, you can do what and how for what? Oh. And people are going to gloss over the fact that they're toughness 3 with a 4+ save and focus on the fact that they move 1,000,000 miles an hour and can do things you can't do for the costs attached to those abilities.
Yeah.
So there is a layer of frustration that's just going to be built into them for players, where you're left shaking your head going,
Well, we need to stop talking about it because it's part of my next episode that I'm...
fine, I'll shut up. I really like them. I'm really interested in getting
And
more table
again,
time.
I think you've hidden that really well. I don't think anybody listening would know how much you really enjoy Harlequins.
Well, I'm still trying to figure out how to get 100 into the the army.
Why?
Because 100 on foot would be amazing.
You know you have to build and paint 100 if you do that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Well, points-wise, it kind of works. Because
Time-wise, it doesn't.
it's 1,450 points, roughly. Maybe a little bit less. For the 100 Harlequins that I want. Mm-hmm. But the problem is then you to try and get the characters, to divide that into squads and make it all legit, you need multiple characters, and you end up with 100 Harlequins and the support characters, and that's it. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's good enough. I think you want a squad of bikes, and I think you want some of the extra, like the Death Jesters and some of those characters, and all of that eats into how many models you can put on the table.
My heart bleeds.
So it does at the moment. I'm really frustrated because I keep looking at this going, I can do this. Oh, it's 3,000 points. Okay. What do I take out to get this down to 2,000? And then there's talk of in our local community with people going, let's play 1850 or 1750 instead. And I'm sat here going, yeah, that's a good idea. Oh, no, actually, no, it's not now because I really want all this stuff. So
I think we can all agree it sucks to be you and move on.
thanks very much.
No problem. Is there anything else that we want to add before we say...
I'm going to say another thank you to our intro voice artists.
People? Yep.
So in no particular order, we had Matt Brown from the US who voiced Sarge. Mm-hmm. We had Matt from Beyond Games and Hobby. We had David down in Bustleton. Mm-hmm. Tim, one of our patrons and regular tournament attendees. And I'm going to use his pseudonym that he's asked me to use, and use on Facebook for security reasons, Tony. Mm-hmm. And then I slipped in one line there, which I ended up having to record because there was a late change in the script, and I got to do one of the voices as well. So thank you very much to everyone who participated in that little project. It was a lot of fun to do, a lot of fun for me to put together in the background.
Let's hope the next one doesn't take 15 months to do.
I actually said to everyone, like, if I can write a decent script, would everyone be interested in voicing, like, little 2 and 3 minute ones again? And everyone's kind of going, yeah, that's really cool. Having now done this the first time around and trying to find the audio and the sound effects and all the other bits and pieces, it's a lot more involved than I was anticipating that project to be. But it was good fun. And I'm really pleased with everyone who kind of hammed it up and embraced it and had a bit of fun with it.
Yeah.
So,
fun.
On that note, we'll leave it there. Thank you for joining us for episode 68. I hope you enjoyed clowning around with us.
Oh, God.
I've got plenty of these puns if you want me to start on them.
I don't. I'm not sure which part of my language, body language, anything made you think that
the radiant apathy.
You know what a fan I am of puns.
That is true. That is true.
Yeah.
But you know what? I've had the last laugh.
Oh, my God.
Because I'm going to sneak a few more jests in before we go. It's almost like the jest is inescapable.
Ida?
I'm sure I can come up with a couple more if you keep letting me pause for a moment.
Okay, so we would like to thank everyone for listening. And while it would be fantastic to be able to give you information and say we know exactly when our next event is, sadly that is not the case. Because, as Mike said at the beginning, we got an email saying we still don't know anything. So that's always exciting. Mike will be in touch with Varsity to find out what is happening there and if and when that is likely to be back in place. We will be with you in 1 week for the next Facebook Live, and Patrons Only podcast will be out as soon as we can possibly get it recorded and get it up. And on that note, I'd like to say happy gaming, everyone.
Oh, the
No,
curtain's
happy
just
gaming.
fallen.
You suck.
You've been listening to the Objective Secured podcast. If you'd like to get in touch, you can visit our website, objectivesecured.com.au. You can find us on Facebook, Facebook/Objective Secured, or you can email us, obsec@optusnet.com.au. Thanks for listening.